Talks between the EU and a Chinese trade delegation underway in Brussels. The EU seeking to address concerns on supply of rare earths. The meeting coming after after China paused export controls on rare earth magnets and other critical raw materials for 12 months. China accounts for 98% of the European bloc's rare earth permanent magnets. The geopolitical firestorm between the US and China prompting the EU to secure its own supply of magnets and come up with a plan to diversify its own supply chain after months of shortage in raw materials and magnets. And for more, we're joined by Will Denselow. He's covering the story for CNA from Brussels. Will, the EU essentially caught in the crossfires of the US and China disagreeing on larger issues on trade, including on rare earths. With China and the US, Mr. Trump and Mr. Xi speaking to each other and reaching some sort of agreement, can the EU hope for China perhaps softening and for its supplies of rare earths to return to what they might have been in the past?
Absolutely, and important to note as well that the EU directly has its own challenges, its own friction points on the matter of trade with Beijing directly. Of course, we saw last year the imposition of those steep tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. The EU also sharing Washington's concern by what they see as dumping of things like cheap steel on the American and European markets. So there are certainly fractious issues in this hugely important trade relationship between the EU and China, apart from the complications between this dynamic between Washington and Beijing as well. So plenty for the European delegation to navigate with their Chinese counterparts. I've been speaking to the European Commission officials who tell me that talks began earlier this morning. They'll continue at least for the next 3.5 hours or so. Now, when it comes to that agreement you mentioned between President Xi of China, President Trump of the United States on this rare earths pause in this issue when it came to export restrictions, well, the Commission has been clear that they won't comment on deals made between other countries that the bloc isn't privy to. They do say that they welcome any developments that remove trade barriers. When it comes to these issues to be resolved, well, of course, there'll be certain hopes that the EU can provide its own guarantees when it comes to rare earth minerals. All eyes will be on when this meeting wraps in a few hours' time.
Thanks. That's Will Denselow there speaking to us from Brussels.